Hello? Well, hopefully this works out.
Hello?
Yep, I'm reading you loud and clear.
See, I can hear you. They don't have any restrictions on being able to talk, so it might be something going on with their mic or something.
Sunflower, do you have push to talk on? Or is it on still?
Yeah, that would do that. No, they don't have any restrictions. I don't know.
Hello? Okay, I think it works now, right?
Okay. I seem to hear you.
Okay, good. Sorry, that was my fault. It was weird. I don't know what it was, but I fixed it anyway. Okay, so all
Well,
right, hold on. Give me 1 second. Um,
I guess it would be good to start all the way from the beginning. I don't remember where we left off in this
yeah,
recording,
yeah, I agree. I
so
agree. I agree. Um, why does this not record audio? I don't understand that.
are you trying to get OBS to work?
Yeah, it's only picking up my own mic and not the mic that's coming from the computer, which is you.
I I don't know. I can't tell you. I'm not an OBS expert.
It doesn't really matter. Let me see. Devices, desktop. Oh, I think I got it.
Okay, cool.
Okay, I got it. Yep. All right, let's start. Let's start. Okay. So I think it's probably easier, unless you had something you specifically wanted to start with, it's probably easier for me to lay out my issues, unless you,
Well, I
um,
just want to go ahead with and say that veganism ought to be a moral obligation for everyone.
okay. Um, and so can you just give your definition of veganism to go along with that statement?
I would just use the Vegan Society's definition to sum it up. Veganism is the ideology and lifestyle that seeks to minimize the exploitation of um, animals and not see them or use them as commodities.
Okay.
Minimize
So,
them to the point of elimination. That's the end goal.
okay. So do you still abide by the as much as like practically and like
Uh,
reasonably
right.
possible thing,
Yeah,
or are you?
exactly.
Yeah, okay. All right, and then my contention was that whatever like practically possible varies from person to person, and for some people it might not even be practically possible to completely abstain from consuming animal products.
You would have to tell us what sort of persons are those people?
Well, why though? Because and this
Why?
isn't
Because
this
if
might sound
because unless you want to get to the point of arguing very trivial matters of, well, you can't move your arm maybe a foot to foot or 12 centimeters to the left and pick up the almond milk instead of the cow milk. Um, everyone can do
well
it.
we don't I don't have to go there. So this is, I think, we can quickly get back to where we left off last time. And my question is, if everyone can do it, then why don't you just state the definition as absolute, abstinence from consuming animal products? Like, why should you have to even use as much as is practical and possible if you can just use the objective line and say, forget about the practical and possible thing. The bare minimum is just not consuming it, and then how much you go further than that is up to your personal interpretation. But why is the bare minimum then, in your opinion, not clearly defined as completely abstaining from consuming those products for everyone?
Well, for example, there may be a vaccine that you really need for your own personal health that there is currently no alternative that you can get. Let's say this vaccine is tested on animals, like I'm pretty sure the COVID vaccine was tested on animals
Right.
to see its efficacy. Well, it's either you take the vaccine or you suffer and die.
Okay, but
I'm seeking to the practical and possible level at in this case would be drawing it to your own safety and your own well-being,
right.
as there is no other option.
Okay, but in the case of like food and diet, would you say that there's just no case where anyone has an excuse to eat meat?
There are plenty of alternatives. Uh, you and me, we both live in a country that has access to these alternatives. We're not in the middle of a jungle. We're not in an actual survival situation that you would resort to killing and eating animals for your own well-being.
Well, again, my issue here is like okay, hypothetical person, like let's say they live in a place where the like there's it's very cold. Let's say they live in like something similar to like the Arctic, right? It's not like
Okay.
they're not stranded on an island, but they have very limited access to like plants, but they have plentiful access to like fish. Now they could like in this hypothetical, let's say there's like one market in town, and they have to like walk like 7 miles to get there, and basically their entire day, if they were to walk to this market on a regular basis and back, it would basically cost them their entire day. Now they could do this, and they could get barely enough, you know, plant-based food to get by, but where they live, there's just fish everywhere, and they would like if they could eat even like one fish every day or maybe every few days, it would save them like several like you know like maybe between 40 and 100 hours per week of their life that would otherwise have spent like trekking to this market. Like, is that actually reasonable to expect that person to do? Now they can do it, but they would have to sacrifice almost all of their free time to do it. At that point, is that person's life, is the one fish they eat every few days really like causing more harm than if they were to just eat it and like be able to be productive and have like engage in personal product projects and be a part of a community and like have social relationships and
Well,
maybe start a family.
it's kind of funny how you mentioned part of a community. Part of this, so you're basically taking on the fringe cases of indigenous people that, or people who choose by their own admission to live basically on the fringes or outside of society.
Well, just a very cold. Let's just take a very cold, remote climate. Like, there's people that live in like in Scandinavia or like remote areas of Russia where they pretty much need to eat some kind of fish. I mean, they didn't like maybe they were born there. They didn't exactly choose to live there. And like these places probably do have, like I said, like these little like podunk little shops that they may have to like somehow get to. But the real and I'm not trying to use this as a get out of jail free card and say that, oh, because there's people in Siberia that need to do ice fishing, that means that everyone else should have a free card to just eat 40 cheeseburgers a day. But what I'm trying to illustrate with this hypothetical is that people's well-being, people's what people derive happiness and joy from is established before they have the capability of critical thinking to the extent that they can actually assess their own actions and the morality of them. So to one person who has no who meat has never meant anything to them, like they've never like they weren't really maybe they raised on like they ate some meat, but they didn't consider it like culturally important. To them, giving up meat would be so incredibly easy. As soon as they realized it wasn't important, crucial, you would just go, oh, why am I doing this? I'm gonna just change tomorrow. But then you take like even not the Siberia example, like take an incredibly impoverished you know mother who brought like three babies from Mexico and they have literally zero money and they come into like a small Mexican community in like southern Arizona and like the only way they can even participate in the community is by like sort of sharing these old cultural recipes that involve meat. Like to ask that person to say like you have to abandon all the things that give you a sense of culture and familiarity and community in the name of you know like doing the moral choice. I think that's not really reasonable, even though they might be able to just only eat like beans and rice and corn. It's like to that person, these foods are such a pivotal point of their identity and their sense of community that like it's not as reasonable to ask them to completely abstain from it as it is like a person that was raised extremely affluent and can basically afford all the most expensive meat replacements whenever they want. They have they have no problem getting these things. So it's not to say that the poor Mexican family can't, but it's to say that it would cost them way more of their personal joy, happiness, their sense of identity, community, the small bit of culture they're bringing over to the states from Mexico, a country they fled from violence. Like it's not always going to be as reasonable of a request for everyone, and it's not always a person saying selfishly like I just like the taste of meat. Like it could be also just how they bond over slow cooking the meat in a I
Okay,
don't
well,
know.
on the
You know what I
case of
mean?
okay, well, on the case of indigenous people, if that's the only choice that they have and they have no other option, completely no other option to farm vegetables, I don't think I can morally go over and impugn them. However, that's not the case that we're discussing here. We're discussing here is,
Well,
for
let's
example,
talk about the poor Mexican.
why you're not vegan and why so many people like us, like yourself, carnists, non-vegans, especially in worlds and in positions where they can reasonably get ethical alternatives, choose to remain carnist.
Okay. Well,
You have a car. I have a car. We both
I do
we
happen to
both
have
we
a
both
car.
have access to supermarkets. We don't walk 50 miles and then have to carry ginormous sacks of grain back to wherever we what our
Well,
our
no.
little man cave. No.
But
So
no.
then my question is, why do you choose to remain carnist?
Okay, and the short answer would be, I'm not convinced that the lifestyle sacrifices I would have to make to have a fully vegan diet would would properly counterbalance the amount of convenience and happiness and health that non-vegan foods bring me. I'm just not convinced that's a good trade-off.
Lifestyle sacrifices? Well, the only sacrifice that I can see is the sacrifice of animals for taste. You have to clarify
Well,
what sort of
not
sacrifices
really
you
true.
mean.
Um, I'd say I would, in my opinion, I would have to have far more regular, sort of like doctor checkups in terms of blood work and nutrition levels. And that's primarily because the supplement industry is not regulated by the FDA, and there's no way to know if the supplements you're buying have, um, bioavailable, chemically potent, um, versions of the things they say they do. Like,
Well, I hate
if
to
I'm
break it
relying,
to you, but these animals, the cows, are fed artificial B12 in the form of supplements, and in Canada, milk is added artificial lab-made vitamin D to fortify it. So, I mean,
well, fair enough,
your supplement argument falls on its face right here. If you say you can't trust
well, why?
supplements because it's not regulated per your whatever threshold level that you're comfortable with of regulation, I'm going to say, well, that goes for the case of farming, and because the farmers supplement the animals with things in their feed.
Yeah, but I'm only juxtaposing this against the fact that I've always eaten animals and I haven't had a problem with malnutrition yet. So the thing is, it's like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like if whatever my diet has been thus far, which has been an omnivorous one, has not resulted in any kind of malnutrition or vitamin deficiency. Now, if I were to adopt a fully vegan diet, whatever the case may be, I am making significant changes and removing
No, you're
previous
not.
sources.
The
Well,
easiest, I mean,
well,
look, I'm sure you probably don't even really count your macros and your micros as omnivore right now. Um, I don't count my macros and micros as a vegan. I just
I don't even
I
consider I don't
basically
even
wing
consider
it.
macros. I don't
So
even
I don't
consider
know why you're so
macros.
concerned about malnutrition.
Because I well wait because like I just said over the course of my life, whenever I've gotten blood work done, I've never had any issues with malnourishment. I know there are potential issues in the vegan diet in terms of especially
Vegan diet
B
doesn't mean you're
12.
starving yourself though.
Wait, what?
The vegan Eating a vegan diet doesn't mean that you starve yourself to the point of malnutrition.
No, I'm not saying it means you starving yourself. I'm
Well,
sorry.
you're kind of
I'm more.
implying that people who go on a vegan diet are at the higher potential risk to starve themselves and have to therefore
No, not
go to
starve
doctors and get
themselves.
more blood
No,
work done. I don't see that as the
no,
case.
no, not starve themselves, but they're at higher risk of things like B12 deficiency, vitamin D deficiency, iron deficiency, vitamin A deficiency.
I'm sorry. Have you heard of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics? They came out with a peer-reviewed statement in one of their studies that basically concluded that appropriately planned vegan diets are suitable for all ages.
Yeah, I'm going by the metadata that clearly indicates that vegans have higher
Metadata.
level.
There is
Yeah,
For every study that you show, I can show you a whole bunch. This is why we had our initial talk in the
that's
study
not true.
archives, and sorry that you can't go there now. But if you'd
It's not
like,
even controversial. But
we could
Denkono, it's not. It's
we
not
could start go. Well,
controversial.
you just said iron, folate. What? some other ones.
Vegans
Well,
have higher levels of deficiencies in those things. This is not even controversial. Vegans don't deny this.
okay. Well, you do recognize that the meat that you eat, for example, beef, is already supplemented with B12 artificially. If the farmers
Well,
didn't give it to their cows, the cows would be deficient, and then you would be eating B12 deficient beef.
like I just said, all I'm basing this on is if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Wait. So you're okay in the case where I feel like you're starting to contradict yourself. You're okay in the case where farmers supplement their cows with B12, but the moment that you get your B12, your vegan B12 supplement, all of a sudden that just opens a whole can of worms to malnutrition
Well,
and
yes, because
deficiency,
of
and
two.
you're gonna have to provide evidence for that.
Okay, well, I'll provide evidence. There's two main reasons for that. The first reason is that the supplement industry is not regulated by the FDA. So even if all the B12 supplements up until this point were contained the amount of bioavailable B12 they said they did, moving forward, it doesn't mean they still are going to be. Secondly, all the metadata does show that vegans have way higher rates of B12 deficiency, and there's videos of vegans on YouTube using intramuscular injections of B12. This is easy to find. It's a common thing. I'm not bringing up some
I
crazy
wouldn't say some
conspiracy.
common thing. I know Vegan Gains did that for some time, but I don't think it's a
It's not
common
just
thing.
him. There's several. There's
Look.
several
Oh,
people.
I've had recent blood work done on myself to use myself as an anecdote. My B12 is fine. My iron is fine.
I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm
It's
saying
not
that I'm not
impossible, and I
willing.
don't take B12 supplements on a
I
regular.
never said it was impossible. I never said it was impossible. I said that I'm not willing to take the risks and make the lifestyle sacrifices.
Well, you would need to provide evidence outside of your own anecdote and my own anecdote to basically conclude that these supplements lead to these deficiencies. And so far,
It
I
could.
haven't seen one.
It
Yeah,
could
they
be.
could. I mean,
It
you
could.
starve yourself, you don't eat anything. Of course, you're gonna be deficient and then die. Vegans are not advocating that people starve themselves.
I never even said that that would be. When did I ever say anything about starving? I
Well, you
said you
said
wouldn't get.
malnutrition, so that's
Yeah, that's not having the right amount of micronutrients. I'm not talking about macronutrients. You're not gonna. I'm not saying that if you go on
okay.
a vegan
So
diet, you're gonna start rapidly losing weight to the point where it's harming you. I never said that.
I don't see a reason why being vegan will make you malnourished at all.
It's more likely to in the
Well,
in
then
the
provide evidence for how it is more likely outside of perhaps you some conspiracy that the
aside from
USDA is not
meta-analysis.
regulating the supplement industry to your liking.
But the meta-analysis, even vegans don't deny that. Like vegans will openly admit, yes, you might have to be a little bit more careful in how you plan your diet and which supplements you take, but it's still possible to have proper nutrition. I don't like. I'm not sure.
Well,
Are
it's
you saying that it's not more likely to have deficiencies in things like D, B12, A, and iron on a vegan diet? Even like, are you saying it's
if you're
not even
not
more likely at
appropriately
all?
eating a well, in most
Yeah,
cases, a
well, I
whole
don't.
foods plant-based
I'm
diet.
not good at. I'm not good at keeping a documented planned regimen on anything.
Okay, this is going. Okay, so we're going to convenience then. I don't.
Absolutely, that's a big part of it.
Big part of it. Wow. I don't.
To
You have
me,
there are so many there are so many ethical alternatives to flesh, eggs, milk that you just have to say it's convenient, where it is also equally as convenient for you to get the vegan versions.
it's not equally convenient if I would have to
All right.
start going to the doctor to get my tested. That's a major inconvenience.
Once again, that's just you. I could bring. I mean, there are cases of, for example, omnivores going through SIBO, and no matter how much fish and whatever other meats they eat, they're still, for example, vitamin D deficient, iron deficient. It's not that they're
Yeah, but I don't happen to be
it's
one of them.
oh okay. Well,
I
it's
don't
not
have.
that
I've never
they're not
had.
eating enough. It's because there's something wrong with their system, and that will require a trip to the doctor. But you see, that doesn't happen just to vegans or omnivores. That can happen to anyone. So I think you're just being a
I don't
bit
just. I don't just.
incredulous here, that saying that there is that this only happens to vegans. And from what I'm
I never said.
understanding,
Wait. I never said it only. I never said it only happens to vegans. I said it's more likely to happen to
well,
vegans.
Okay. I'm sorry, I misspoke. More likely to happen to vegans. It sounds to me that what's happening here is you don't really want, or I guess learning is hard. It's a hard. It can be hard. You're just not willing to take the step. As to why, just because you're afraid you might have to go to a doctor.
I mean, you can laugh at that and say it's trivial, but like I'm just providing my own personal explanation here. Like that again, in the most extreme examples, like the one of the guy that lives in the Arctic, or like the poor Mexican family that has no sense of identity or purpose beyond the recipes they might have. I'm not there yet, but I'm somewhere in between that and the person that has literally just finds out about veganism and
Wait.
overnight.
So you're appealing to using the indigenous people example to saying why you can't be vegan.
Well, I'm not saying I can't be vegan. I'm
Well, you're
saying that I'm
saying
not
something in the
willing.
middle of that and the other, where you're
Yeah,
afraid
I'm
of
saying I'm
going to
not. I'm
doctor on a
not.
for some reason on a regular basis.
Okay, for the same reason, you don't eat the bare minimum amount of calories that would be necessary to sustain your health. Like, you could always go further than what you're doing right now, but it's not necessarily reasonable for you to. I'm doing the same thing as you. I'm just putting the bar right shy of abstaining from vegan foods. Like, no vegan is doing the absolute maximum of what they can to reduce, in terms of their lifestyle choices and diet, to reduce harm on animals. It's not possible. You'd have to like basically like
We
I
do
don't.
as
You
much
have.
as we can, as much as practical and possible.
Well, but that's
Like,
up to you though.
well, like, what are you gonna tell me to start just lose my car and for me to walk to work now just because I
How
might
about
accidentally hit
freeganism?
a couple of bugs or a deer on the way
No,
to
how
work?
about freegan? How about freeganism?
Oh, okay. So you want me to go around and just eat whatever's dead
I don't
that's
want you
already died?
to. I'm trying. No, I don't want you to. I'm saying that there's always someone that's doing more. Where you personally draw the line is essentially like subjective and therefore arbitrary based on what you think is reasonable. What not you, but like anyone, any individual. So I'm not saying that it's. I'm not. I would agree with you that we should aim
All
to
right.
reduce.
Okay. At this point in the conversation, this is where we're going to have to start bringing start questioning our moral systems and see which one is more consistent in line with our moral beliefs. Like, for example, you think that eating humans is wrong. I hope
In nearly all cases, I could imagine, yeah.
killing and eating humans is wrong. I'm sure if you eat a dead human who's died of natural causes, there might not be that much fuss. But okay.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
So this is where we go to name the trait, and name the trait that is present in trait equalized animals, that if present in trait equalized humans would allow us to kill and eat the humans.
Um, so I'm familiar with name the trait, and the main answer I would say is moral agency. Like the human species, human beings have the capacity for moral agency.
Mm, okay.
There are counter arguments to that I anticipate. So before you can get into them, I would say that even in the case of humans that say are severely disabled or for some reason don't have moral agency, I would say the main reason we don't eat them is because they have kinship with other humans. Like if a mother and a father give birth to a child that doesn't have moral agency for whatever reason, but they cherish the child and love the child, now that like because of that bond to other human beings that do have moral agency, that makes it way worse. For the same reason that it's way worse to kill someone's pet dog than a random dog that no one's ever met besides you.
Okay. So
Um,
in that case, I would counter with a hypothetical that um those if we get like a humanoid species of aliens that have, for example, some version of homeless children that do not have kinship, you would say it's okay to murder and eat them.
um, wait a second. Can you re-illustrate? So it's an alien species that's basically for like
No, they're
for
just, yeah,
all.
similar to humans. Like, let's just say they're humanoids. I don't know. They're like, okay, Superman, whatever his imaginary races, whatever.
Okay. And do we
And then
have
we
empathy?
have some of their, some of them being disabled and not being able to form kinship along the same similar lines as our disabled humans can. Would you say it's okay to murder and eat them?
Um, let me try to think through this experience. So in this example, they're an alien species. They're very much human-like,
Mm-hmm.
but they can't form
They can't form
kinship
kinship because they're
with each
mentally
other or
retarded.
with us. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be like annoying here. They can't form kinship with each other, or they can't form kinship with humans.
Oh, they can't form kinship with each other.
Well, that's not really
Just
relevant
like our
because
humans can't. What do you mean? What do you mean that's not relevant?
like if someone had a pet dog, I would say that it's like several orders of magnitude more wrong to kill someone's pet dog than to kill a stray dog for the same purposes I just listed about the disabled child that doesn't have moral agency, but it has a kinship bond with his parents. So if this alien thing has no kinship with any members of its own species or any humans, and now on top of that, let's say, you know, for whatever reason, it's like its meat is available at the supermarket, then yeah, I don't think that at that point it's any worse than buying
Okay, well, the
like.
problem is how we're going to get that meat to the supermarket. That would require us humans to basically treat them as we do cows.
Well, this goes back into but this is about history, right? Because we're born into a world where there's been generations of like farms that kill animals. So
Yeah,
it's
we were
not like.
also we were some of us were also born during a time where slavery was acceptable in the social norm. So what?
That's right, but what I'm saying is like if we could just use something like or not octo like dolphin, like if we just use dolphins instead of the alien species, like there's a good reason that we don't think that it's just as okay to eat like kill and eat a dolphin as it would be to kill and eat like a wild rabbit, and that's because dolphins are an endangered species. They're highly intelligent. So like we're not. I don't think anyone's arguing for creating new industries of farming that kill animals that we're not already slaughtering, but for the ones that have already been like existing in these generational farms, there's not a lot of viable alternatives because there's so many of these animals, and there's
Yes,
like
there's a
it,
viable
it,
alternative is to stop breeding them into existence, and they will naturally die of just natural causes. Everybody
well,
dies.
if that
We're
happens,
not
then
going
I
to be
guess
over. The world is not going to be overrun by cows unless, of course, we keep raping them into existence.
if if that happens and there's no more animal products for me to buy, then I guess I'm shit out of luck, right? Like I'm not gonna like I'm not gonna like go to war with
Okay,
other
well, the
humans.
thing is, you're still you're still abusing animals as a contributor to the system, whereas
I
you
feel
don't
as
have
though,
to.
again, I personally feel as though the unique circumstances of my life, it's not a good trade-off for me personally in terms of how many lifestyle sacrifices and levels of convenience and levels of comfort and happiness I would have to make. Other people might feel different. Other people might think it's easy to stop. Um,
Well,
like a
okay,
person
well,
that's born, you
I
know,
think like all right, look, we keep going from your convenience and you start bringing it onto the general people, like other people's conveniences, like that of the indigenous people. And I already said our main vegans' main focus is on people like you and me, people that live in a developed country that have easy access to ethical alternatives. We're not going to go and start berating some tribe um, out in the Amazon just because they don't plow fields, they don't have access to vegan foods, although some of them do farm their own stuff, but you're not going to see us basically going pell mell onto them. People like you, however, do have um, do have as I would say, to a very reasonable degree, access to be to not uh, to not remain an animal abuser by proxy, and take the more ethical route.
Okay, and my response to that would be same way you just said to me. I could say you could lower your caloric intake by 30% for the rest of your life. You might feel emaciated and always hungry and low energy, but ultimately you'd still be able to survive and not be malnourished. You would just have lower energy and not be as happy. So that's
Um,
totally accessible to you. Why don't you do
no,
it?
that's not because you're making a health example here, and I'm bringing it back
No,
to
it's not
animals.
health. It's just thriving. Like you would probably live longer actually. You live longer if you reduce your caloric intake. You just might not be thriving and have the same amount of
All
energy.
right, you're gonna have to provide me some studies that say I have to cut out 30% uh, of a 2,000 calories every day, and
Well,
then
I'm just
just
saying
just
you
to
eat the bare
survive and be on
minimum.
bare minimum. 2,000 calories is
Yeah.
bare minimum. So what? I eat more,
So
sometimes I eat
you think
less.
that you think that you're actually you have zero excess body weight on you, like
What do you
not
mean
even
excess
1
body
ounce.
weight? Everyone has fat. I think I'm at a decent.
No, no. If you
Okay.
operated at the bare minimum amount of caloric intake, you wouldn't be able to hold any excess weight on your body long term.
Excess
It would eventually all go away. That's what bare minimum means. It means you're not losing weight or gaining weight, but you're at like the exact weight that's just enough for you to survive. Unless you're that skinny, which I highly doubt, you're not eating
No,
the bare minimum. You're probably eating a
I'm not a
slight.
Jewish Holocaust survivor. No.
Yeah, and if you do any exercise, you're definitely eating excess, right? Because if you
Okay.
burn, 300 calories a day from exercise, that's 300 calories extra you have to
But the
eat
thing is, that
because
well-being does
otherwise,
not conflict with others' well-being.
yes, it does. All forms
To a
of
most
you
practical and
can't
reasonable
buy and eat
reasonable
food
degree.
without that didn't have some, even if it's
Okay, so we're
minuscule,
gonna have
it
calorie
has.
police walking around outside and slapping the cupcake, and like
I
anytime a
agree that
person
it's
wants to eat the
wait,
cupcake, they're gonna slap the
no,
cupcake out of their hands and say, "Well, no, because if you eat
wait.
this
I agree
this
that is
cupcake,
absurd. That's
all these little bugs would have to die in the
Denkono.
fields." Okay,
I'm
buddy.
invoking it because it's absurd. I'm invoking it because it's absurd. I don't support that, but I'm saying that to you, that sounds crazy, but complete abstination from animal products is reasonable, and to me,
It is reasonable
complete
because we have
abstination.
alternatives that fill in those gaps,
And
and
okay,
the
but I'm
scientific
trying to
community
tie this all
back them.
together here. I'm trying to tie this all together here. What when you say it's ridiculous to have calorie police, I think it's just as ridiculous to tell someone they can't have one sardine a year. Okay, like that to me is nonsensical. To
So
tell someone like,
wouldn't it just be as unreasonable? Would you think it would just be reasonable to tell, well, you can't tell a psychopath or murderer that they just can't kill one person per year. They have to cut out all killing.
you just said the calorie police that slap the cupcakes are absurd, so I don't see where you're going with that. Do you think calorie police that slap cupcakes out of people's hands are absurd or not?
Well, if they're vegan cupcakes, yeah, I find that absurd.
Even
No,
though there's inevitably there's a net positive of harm done to animals that went into making that cupcake.
well, net positive harm. I can agree with that we all cause some degree of harm, but the thing is, I mean, I
Right.
already know that vegans
So
cause
how much
death.
harm
Yes,
is
so
caused
you're
by
bringing it to you're bringing it back to crop deaths. The thing is,
it's pretty
you would have to
multifaceted.
you would
Like the
have to
car that
present a
polluted the environment.
utilitarian you have to present some sort of some utilitarian breakdown where meat eaters would be causing less suffering than vegans by eating one sardine a year. And that's just from the utilitarian view. If we go and take it into if we look at it from a deontology perspective, then you see that the people eating the crops, they're not going out there to purposely kill animals just to eat those
Why does
crops.
intention? I don't see why the intention matters if they're causing the harm. Like that just
Well,
seems like an
sometimes
argument
harm.
for scared.
Sometimes you need to harm in order to support your own well-being.
Exactly. And then
But
how
the thing
much
is,
someone's willing to reduce that harm
but
is
here's the thing:
subjective.
that one person that ate that one sardine, you could have just ate some vegan food and would have not had to murder that sardine.
You know, one sardine probably has more
Okay,
nutrients in it than like
we're going back to your
90,000.
credulity here. So my
Sardines
question,
are really like the most nutrient dense thing you can eat, and they also happen to probably be one of the least sentient animals I can imagine. Like, what do you think is going
that's
on in a sardine's body?
wow,
Like,
and I can
how
tell you that
advanced?
plants have no sentience at all, and eating them would
Okay,
be would
how
be even better
advanced
than
is
eating a sardine.
how
Okay.
advanced is the nervous system of a sardine? Do you honestly think? Like, how much suffering can a sardine really like
I don't know.
max?
They're a sentient. I view them as a sentient animal, whereas you can eat where plants are not sentient animals, and you can get the same benefit to your own well-being just by eating
You know how many
the
calories?
plants
Well, first
instead.
of all, no, you can't. There's no plant that has DHA.
Well, there's a thing about called eating to amount. You don't just eat.
Well, there's literally no
Well,
plant
it's not
source
like you go
for
around and
DHA.
survive on eating one corn a day. It's just suppose
The
that people would
the
have to
algae
eat more than just
supplements,
that.
the algae supplements, which are fairly new, are the only vegan source of DHA.
No, you get seaweed. Um,
I'm not aware. I'm
nuts
not
and seeds
familiar.
are also a very good source.
No, they have the other omega 3s, dude. DHA
Oh,
is the
okay.
unique
Now we're going to
fish oil.
DHA, ALA to
It's
DHA. Are you going to start?
important.
You're going to have to give me studies that say the conversion rates from plant sources of DHA going into ALA are not sufficient enough.
Vegans don't even argue with that. They admit that the conversion rates of whatever ALA and whatever the other one is are not great. They're like less than 10%. That's not even controversial among vegans. It just so happens that now there's
Well,
actually
it just
vegan
so
D3
happens
that
that you
I don't.
don't need
I
to
mean,
eat the sardine in order to get the same nutrition.
yeah, but it's so much more nutrient dense that the like the amount of convenience and like
We could start going in a chronometer. I can show. I'm pretty sure there are like we can pull up all plant foods in different amounts. To let's say even to match the
okay,
sardine
pull up
that are more
Chronometer
nutrient dense than it. So
I'll put
I
up
was
Chronometer.
for my whole thing was to get why exactly you decide that you choose out of sheer convenience, as you say, to remain a carnist. Or do you not cook?
Everyone chooses out of sheer convenience
Do you
some
not cook?
level
I mean,
of
do you buy all your food already pre-made? Is
I
that what it
answer.
is?
Can I answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Everyone, even vegans, everyone at some point does make some kind of compromise between their own convenience and the amount of harm they can reduce. Nobody is maximizing the reduction of harm. You would have to become an ascetic. You would have to literally basically sit still and survive on like natural fruit juice. Like it's not possible. Okay, and so since everyone says, well, I'm not going to go completely crazy. I'm going to make some compromises. I'm going to reduce here, reduce there, reduce here, reduce there, and everyone sort of makes their own decision. Now, because of the way that the cults work in societies, it's easy to draw a line and say, "Oh, this is the line," and then assume that everybody it's equally
Cults
easy for
work?
everyone
Okay,
to.
so are you basically saying that veganism is a cult and carnism isn't?
Radical veganism is definitely a cult. I mean,
Radical
carnism isn't a
veganism.
cult. People
Okay,
don't
so
even know.
what's
People
radical
who are
veganism compared to
carnists don't even
veganism?
know what that word means. People that are so-called carnists don't even know what that word means. You can't be a
Well,
member
it's
of a cult if
because
you
you
don't even know
guys
you're in
are
it.
so socially indoctrined into basically not
No,
not
but no,
thinking
but the
about
point
where
is,
your food
they
comes
don't
from and
know.
what goes into it. I'm sorry to
No,
say.
being a vegan
I
is
was the
a
same way
deliberate.
3 years ago.
Being a vegan is a deliberate like label that people choose and partake in. It's not like you just like I guess there's some people that maybe grow up eating veganism and don't know what veganism is just because that's the foods they eat, but that's like extremely rare.
No, I'm
The
pretty
vast
sure. No, I'm
majority,
pretty sure they all come across it at some point because you
exactly, and that's why
no,
it's
it's because
cult-like. That's why it's
it's not
cult-like. Yeah.
cult-like. Oh, well, if you want to put cult as a acronym for culture in a really negative context, well, yeah, so be it. Wow, if vegans are a
No,
cult,
it's cult
then
like
that makes
because
carnists into their own separate little cult as well. The cult of
it's
sacrificing
cult
and
like
killing
because it's
animals.
unforgiving in its in
Well, the
essentially its
thing is, you
rule.
guys are basically killing animals, and you're discriminating who you're killing to wind up on your dinner plate. I mean, if you really wanted to be consistent, you go out and kill and eat humans. I haven't seen any human
No,
meat yet. I mean,
that's
I go
obviously
as
not true.
well, human.
It's
Wait,
obviously
you're saying
not
there's
true.
human meat at some supermarket store on a shelf that you can buy? I haven't come across that. I've seen the last
I'm
I've
not
heard about
saying that.
cannibals are these little tribes out in Southeast Asia.
Wait,
Well,
what?
that's
What?
what you were
When
trying
did
to
I
get
ever
to.
say? No, I wasn't. How would I? When did I ever imply anything like that? What do you mean?
Well,
Like,
you got this recorded, so you can just after we're done talking, listen back to it.
yeah, I mean, I think there's been productive parts of the conversation. I think at times you kind of get frustrated and sort of resort to like vegan talking points that you're not fully familiar with enough to really argue on behalf of.
I'm pretty familiar with
I
all the
mean,
talking points. I mean, I'm not I can't
you're
say I'm
deep.
Mr. I
You're
can't
not
say
that.
I'm
Yeah,
Avi Bitterman, and I can't pull stats out of thin air because I haven't read as much as he has, but I do know the basics. So I wanted to I
yeah,
asked you
you
a
do.
question
But
which you
a
seemed to
lot of this
dodge
is
earlier about your personal convenience. I asked you, do you not cook at home? Do you eat all your food that's been pre-made? And that's why you think, I don't, maybe that's why you
well, I
think,
actually enjoy cooking. I actually enjoy cooking. It's not an inconvenience for me if I sometimes enjoy it. I don't cook every day, but like I cook from time to time because I actually enjoy it.
okay, sweet. So you do know so you do know basics of cooking. So you could just so I don't see what's exactly stopping you from basically eliminating the animals and bringing in plants and vegetables to fill in the gap when you basically agree
Well,
that it is more ethical and you
I've reduced my animal product intake considerably, but I've not eliminated it, and I don't
you don't
currently I don't see myself eliminating.
well you think that there's the problem there. You think like you've just reached the personal end goal of you say you've eliminated you'd be talking like to a murderer. Oh, it's like I don't murder, 7 days a week now. I only murder 1 day a week, and I feel like I'm going to stop there.
I
It's
don't think
perfectly
that's
fine.
analogous. I don't think
Yes,
that's analogous here.
that's pretty
Um,
analogous right here.
I don't think it is
Yep.
because like there's no conceivable way someone can argue that murder is like a essential nutrient to their survival.
Well, you're not a freegan, are you? You don't collect those dead
I mean,
animals.
you can make this argument for me. You know, we evolved the human species. Like veganism is fairly new. It didn't even exist like until the 20th century.
No, it
So
has
to
existed
conflate
before. Emily from Bite Size Vegan has a whole video on this where she also
not
puts
ethical veganism, no,
well, ethical.
not
What do you
ethical
mean
veganism.
not
Does
ethical
not
veganism? There have been plenty instances where I think was it Christian monks or some religious sects like
ethical veganism existed before.
Jains, for example, are basically what you would might call a radical vegan, where they have to walk around with a brush and brush the places where they put their feet, before their next step and that sort of stuff. They don't eat. They restrict their vegetables to uh, like a couple because they think that pulling you're basically killing so many animals just by pulling tuberous vegetables out of the ground.
Well, okay,
Like,
then clearly
okay,
they're
yeah,
not
they've
vegan.
been there for a long. Jainism has been
Clearly,
here for
wait,
quite some time
you
before the 20th century.
you
My
just
friend.
demonstrated that clearly those people wouldn't. No one would categorize that as vegans. Like if they incidentally don't eat meat, but they also think that like plants feel pain. And I think you've gone into a different category of identity here. This is not. This is no longer ideological veganism. This is something
There's been
entirely
so many
different.
other ones before. I would just, if you want, I can send you the link to her video.
No, no, there hasn't because it's not been possible to get the supplements that allow vegans to exist were not created until the 20th century. So there
Even though,
was no there
even
literally
if it was,
there were vegetarians.
even if veganism
If you're familiar with
just became
India,
more prevalent in the last several decades, so what?
How would anyone before the 20th century, if they had no access, there was no supplement, let's just say there's no supplements at all, how would these people have gotten sufficient B12 or iron or, what would they have done? They just would have been deficient in those
I
things,
wouldn't
right?
know. Perhaps they ate more. Not to mention that
So then
our
you're
soils are
literally,
probably a
no,
lot better
there's no,
back
what
then
do you
anyway.
mean? What's the B12 source from plant foods that can actually is high enough
Well,
to
B12
actually
basically comes from the water in the soil. It's not actually found. It's not actually found on found inside. Plants don't produce it. It's found in
going
the
to the river
ground.
water thing?
Is it?
You
Excuse
know
me?
that the concentration of B12 from that study was so minuscule and so low
Yeah. So you
that
would have to eat a
vegans
whole shit ton of it.
unanimously agree it would have never been nearly enough to get any person,
Okay,
that
cool. And
dealing
then
with
so
it.
then those animals that weren't force-fed B12 supplements because we have this supplement industry for the farmers buying the B12 and supplementing their cattle with it. Back then they didn't do that because there were no supplements, as you want to say. So you would have also
Yeah,
been
so
eating. You
yeah,
would have
I
also
guess
been eating. You would have also been eating
what do you
nutritionally
like?
deficient beef, and that.
Where's the
So
disconnect here, in
your
your opinion?
argument doesn't make sense at all.
So are you actually saying, wait, are you actually saying that when people ate animals, like before the 20th century, that they weren't getting B12 from animals?
They would
Where
get
were they getting
B12.
it
They could
then?
get as much as the animal would have got from eating, but the animal wasn't supplemented as the animals are now.
Well, clearly people were surviving before animals were being
Yeah, and
supplemented.
when people are still surviving, vegans are doing
I don't,
fine. So it's because
well,
you're
yeah,
you're
but I don't,
basically
you're
fear
trying
mongering
to,
about a
I don't know
supplement
what you're
industry,
saying.
even though you partake in it with the choice of your through buying through buying animal products at the store, and I just find that hilarious.
Well, for one, I'm not sure that all animals are actually supplemented with B12. I know there are examples that some definitely are,
Okay,
but
so
I'm not sure that.
oh, you're not
I
sure.
don't think
Well, I
that
guess we have to go. Well, I'm sorry to
I don't think
say. I
every
guess we'll have to
single
bring up
farm.
some studies from the study archives on supplementation of
No, I know
cattle.
some are. I know some
Some,
livestock are
okay.
definitely. You think all livestock in the entire world are given B12
I'm sure a good
supplementation?
majority of them are. Farmers that can't afford supplements, I'm pretty sure they can't afford and therefore don't give them. Like I suppose like some poor farmer in India. So, I mean, do you still? All right.
Cattle naturally get cattle naturally get B12 and bacteria that produces B12 from clumps of dirt around the grass roots, and chickens get B12 from pecking around for worms and other insects.
In addition to the feed that they're getting, in the feed that the farmer is supplementing them with.
So farmers add extra. I guess that's great for them. I don't know that that's absolutely necessary. I don't know that if they didn't do that, the animals wouldn't have enough B12. That the humans that ate them wouldn't get enough. Like they're just because
Well,
they're
this
being
is just a
safe and
health
giving them extra
argument. We haven't
B12. I don't
got.
know
This
that.
is a side of ethics. Are you still planning to watch the vegan gains debate tonight?
Yeah, for sure. I'll be there.
Okay. Well, it's getting close to that time, so if you want to talk again at some other time, feel free to
Sure.
message me.
All right. Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, I think it was again a pretty good exchange. I learned some stuff, and I'm glad we could at least keep it cordial, and maybe we can talk again soon.
Hopefully. All right. Well, have a good day.
All right.
Hopefully you'll become vegan sometime.
All right. Yeah. Have a good day. Later, man.